My fiance's aunt is the worst person on planet Earth, as she ruined my proposal to her niece. Because after I denied her access to my bank account for her to judge if I was worthy of getting married to her niece, she decided to ruin the surprise by telling my now fiance that I was planning on proposing. And I'm honestly still frustrated by this entire ordeal that I now seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of backstory, my fiance's dad and aunt are immigrants who moved here to the United States during the 80s. Being immigrants back then in pursuit of the American dream wasn't easy, so I do give them props for leaving their families in their home country for a better life. Eventually, they were able to move all their siblings over, and they all live within a 5-minute drive of each other in the same town. They worked hard to be successful, but it developed this nasty attitude of pride and entitlement. Then, coming from a culture where respect is simply given to a person, all because they're an elder, honestly just didn't help either. Her dad doesn't like me for some reason, and hasn't made any effort to reciprocate any efforts of getting to know each other. And it's crazy to me because he's known as the nice uncle in the family, and he's just cold and distant when it comes to me. The aunt is the matriarch of the family, whose power over the family is rooted in her giving money to them. That's all she's about, is money. It's also how she gauges your worth by the amount of money that you have. Anyways, my fiance and I just got engaged this year after dating for 10 years. We would have sooner, but certain conditions and life events prolonged it. One of them being my fiance losing her mom back in 2020. Well, when it came time to ask my soon-to-be fiance if she would marry me, I was told by her cousins that I would need to ask her dad for permission and her aunt as a stand-in since her mom had passed away, which I understood, and I had no problems keeping up with this tradition since we all come from the same culture. So, without my then girlfriend's knowledge, I visited and asked her dad first, and trust me, I was prepared for an argument. I asked if I could speak to him and just told him what I was planning on doing and that we could sit down and chat. However, to my surprise, he just said that if you think you're ready, then go ahead. And while I thought he'd have more of a reaction to having his only daughter's significant other ask for her hand in marriage, it honestly went over smoother than expected, which really was great, and I prepped myself for the next task. I then visited the aunt at her home a couple of days later. I met up with her and I did the same spiel, and her and I sat down for what I thought was going to be a chat. Instead, it was a 2.5-hour long session of her berating and belittling me. She called me an outsider to her family, who was only trying to leech off of them. According to her, I bring nothing of value to the table, and that my fiance was stupid for even being with me. She even said that I was in a worthless career. And for reference, I'm an education specialist, and I've been working on my last year of completing my master's degree. She then demanded that I tell her if my fiance and I have spent quality time together, if you know what I mean. And when she asked that, I replied by saying that it isn't my position to divulge that information, but that she could be rest assured that I would never pressure my fiance into anything she's not comfortable with. Well, at this point, she said to me, "Wow, 10 years you've been together and you haven't even touched her." And at this point, she said an incredibly offensive insult towards me that basically questioned in the worst way possible if I even liked women in the first place. After she said this, she even called in one of the other aunties that was in the house at the time that was visiting and said to her, "Come in here, this guy's telling me he's been with my niece for 10 years and he's never even laid a finger on her." And then she kept saying that insult over and over again, while also shouting out, "Don't lie to me, I know how men think." She then proceeded to demand I reveal to her and grant her access to my bank account and all of my assets so she can see and tell if I'm worthy to her. She then decided to badmouth my fiance and her late mother. She claimed that the mom kept my fiance distant from the family and that she must have been mentally disabled, thinking that was good for my fiance growing up, and that because of her mother's action, my fiance has picked up unsavory habits, like associating with people like me. Now, at this point, I was seething. It's one thing to berate and belittle me, but to talk smack about my fiance and her mother, who was the only person from my fiance's immediate family to accept me, as well as get to know me, I honestly just couldn't stand it. I held my tongue so as not to cause any unnecessary drama and cause the aunt to call my fiance to complain about my visit and ruin the surprise. But I guess I didn't do a good enough job hiding my emotions because the aunt called me out, saying, "Why do your eyes look like that? They look like they've got bad intentions behind them. This is why you aren't good for our family." At this point, I'd had enough. I ended the conversation telling her that I had to go. But before I left, I told her, even if you're not happy with it, I'm still going to ask your niece and it's ultimately her decision. Please just let her have the surprise of me asking her. And she then replies by saying, "I hope she makes the smart decision and says no. Goodbye." Fast forward to the day before the proposal, and I get a text message from one of my fiance's cousins saying that the aunt had thrown me under the bus. She called my fiance to complain about another family member, which then just devolved into her complaining about me and revealing that I had visited her to ask for for her permission. And at this point, I was livid. Months of planning completely ruined right then and there. I even arranged for some of her family from her mom's side to fly in from out of state so that they could be there to witness us getting engaged. I mean, they had literally just taken off to travel to us. I couldn't postpone the proposal, so I decided to go ahead and do it anyways. She knew that it was happening, but at least she didn't know when it was going to happen. I arranged to have a photo shoot done for our 10-year anniversary of dating at a local flower shop and a nature garden, and it all went according to plan. We had loved ones hide out of sight until the big moment, and she said yes. She didn't expect the out-of-state family to be there, so at least that was some kind of surprise for her. We all went to celebrate afterwards, except for her dad's side of the family. It broke my heart when my fiance called her dad and asked him to come to the restaurant with us and celebrate, but he said that he couldn't because he had to go buy shampoo from Costco for one of the aunties. But even though he didn't show up, we still had a great time. The next day, my now fiance and I went over to visit the aunt. The dad was there but didn't bother to say anything to us. The aunt took one look at my fiance's engagement ring and then said out loud, making sure that I could hear, "Wow, that's all he could afford, you poor little thing." But my saint of a fiance just said that it's perfect for her, and she smiled at me. And right then, all of my anger disappeared. So fast forward and we're back for the holidays. And the dad side of the family is a complete nightmare. I've been a bit under the weather, so I used that as an excuse to avoid going over to the aunt's house for the holidays. And their family is feuding right now with another faction of the family one of the siblings married into. I heard the aunt complained about how the other faction had the audacity to celebrate the holidays as if she somehow owned the holidays or something like that. Now, of course, she was also complaining about me and spouting again about how I need to grant her access to my bank accounts and show her proof of all of my assets because according to her, it's the only way that I can show that I'm acceptable. Meanwhile, one of her nephews got into some heavy substances this year and got all the way to the point of getting violent and then getting arrested. They even had to ask the aunt to bail out the nephew, but apparently I'm much more of a blight on the family for simply existing and being in love with my fiance. But thankfully, my fiance does not have the same values of her family, and I definitely would not choose to deal with her family if she wasn't worth all of this trouble. Wow, the aunt in this story is crazy. She really thought that it would be okay to be like, "Oh yeah, well you need to give me your bank account and all of your asset information because that's the only way for me to see if you're acceptable or not." Not to mention the horrifying insult she was throwing the original poster's way. Like, all of this is so crazy, it's not even funny. And the best part about it is that she clearly still has problems with pretty much anybody trying to get involved with a family. Like, this is some serious main character energy, it's not even funny. So good for you for stepping up and being like, "No, I'm gonna ask her to marry me anyways, and you're just gonna have to deal with it." And sure, she completely ruined the surprise and basically took away from your big day, but it really sounds like your future wife is a great person, and there's nothing that this aunt can do to stop you guys from getting married. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Would I be the jerk if I moved out and basically forced my friend to move out after he and his girlfriend decided to be loud all the time and treat me like garbage? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been roommates with my close friend for about 3 months now. We have been very close friends before, but living together brought some conflicts and things are now kind of shaky between us. Well, last month, he got a girlfriend. She has been coming over for 3 to 4 nights a week since then, and they've been staying up until 5 in the morning mostly and make all kinds of noise. I'm not a heavy sleeper and I do have a lot of trouble sleeping, and it's now become like living with 3 people in the flat, which is not ideal for me. When I brought this to his attention, he basically said I'm jealous of them and their happiness. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I have not been in a good space recently, and I'm suffering from loneliness. I can also say seeing my friend and his girlfriend kind of brings out my insecurities and brings down my mood. A few nights ago, I brought this to the attention of my friend, and I basically said I'm not in a good mental space right now, and being around them makes me feel miserable. I mentioned that I'm thinking of moving out, and he may need to find another flatmate. Well, the thing is, we are staying in this flat thanks to a guarantor I found. Without me, he will need to find another guarantor, and that is not possible for him, meaning that he will basically have to move. We have planned for a 1-year lease and signed for a 6 months term, which will renew in March. And this is the first time I told him I'm planning to leave. Well, he lashed out at me for acting out of jealousy and breaking the contact that we made. He said he helps me so much, and he really did, but I have been nothing but a problem for him. I told him circumstances changed since we moved in, and I'm not in a good mental space right now. Now, he and his girlfriend are giving me the cold shoulder and being louder than ever. I don't want to let down my friend, all because of my mental problems and insecurities and certain things about myself, but I also do not think I can take this for 8 more months. So am I the jerk if I move and basically force my friend to move as well? Because right now I don't know what to do. Oh man, if I had a roommate who was making this much noise and they were trying to be like, oh yeah, you're just jealous of me and my girlfriend. Wow, you're so jealous, look at you. I would be like, no, I'm not jealous, but you guys are making way too much noise. Also, she's not on the lease, so she can't stay here all the time. Because if she is, then she's gonna have to start paying some rent. Like, this is so unfair for you, it's not even funny. I totally understand that you feel jealous and you have some kind of like thing going on right now where you're like having trouble mentally, but for me, it all comes down to the fact that they're being way too loud. This is not fair for you, you don't deserve this, and honestly, the fact that they don't understand, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic. So no, you would not be the jerk if you moved out. These people clearly don't respect you, and I seriously don't think that you deserve to be treated this way in the slightest. An entitled customer demands that I give them a refund exactly how they want it, with her essentially demanding that I hack the system in order to meet her weird demands. Here's what happened. Over a decade ago now, I worked the customer service desk for a large chain department store. We primarily handled returns, about 95% of which were run-of-the-mill transactions, 4% were unusual, and 1% were absolutely wild. And this situation was part of the 1%. But first, a brief description of the return process. To make a return, I could use the receipt itself or look up the transaction by scanning the purchasing credit card, both a store card or a major credit card, such as a Visa or a MasterCard. The refund would then be issued back to the original card, or upon request, the customer would get a merchandise credit. Cash was only an option if used as original tender or to refund a debit card purchase. In the event of a customer not having their receipt or purchasing card available, a merchandise credit was automatically issued, and this would be at the lowest refund amount possible. Use of a receipt or purchasing card ensured a refund of the full price paid. Now, what this particular customer wanted to return is of no importance, and even to this day, I've completely forgotten about. However, what I will never forget is how she wanted me to complete her return. You see, she made the purchase some time ago on credit card A, which is blatantly shown on her receipt. She had then closed credit card A and opened up a new card that we will call credit card B. Now, this customer wanted me to scan her receipt, ensuring her the full refund amount, but instead of giving her refund to credit card A, which by the way got canceled, she wants me to apply the credit to credit card B. Apparently, she believed that I could just type the new card information into my magical computer and that she'd be on her merry way, easy peasy lemon squeezy. She could not understand why that wasn't an option, and she did not want the only alternative, which was to process the full refund as a merchandise credit. In spite of my best attempts to inform her that I couldn't do what she was asking and why she shouldn't want that capability on my end, this customer thought I just didn't have the clearance and wanted me to get my manager. And wouldn't you guess it, my manager said the exact same thing. Sadly, I don't remember what the customer ended up deciding, though I'm assuming she took the full merchandise credit in the end. I do remember what I told my manager as we watched this customer walk out the door, because I said to him, if I could have done what she was asking me to do, I definitely would not be working in retail. This customer seemed to believe that I had the skills to hack the computer to do exactly what she wanted, which really would be my ticket out of working in retail. This story resonates with me because honestly, customers sometimes are so unreasonable. They legitimately will be like, oh yeah, you can hack the system and do it just for me. Go ahead and do it. I need it done. And it's like, dude, if I could do that, I absolutely would, and I would quit this stupid job. So yeah, this customer was being needlessly silly in my opinion, because what they were asking for was completely ridiculous. An entitled Karen tries to cut in line in front of me and eventually freaks out when I tell her no, claiming that I'm a heartless jerk and that I don't have the Christmas spirit. And at this point, I'm wondering if I'm the jerk by denying her request, because at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my mom sent me to the grocery store 3 times today. I was just picking up 2 packs of beans on the last visit, and I was in a rush to get home since it was 7:00 p.m. While I was waiting for a self-checkout to open up, someone who I guess was this woman's ride came in to check up on her, and then I guess she was in a bit of a rush because she came up behind me and tried to squeeze in front of me while also saying, "Excuse me." Now, I just ignored her and continued waiting, but then she asked me if she could cut in front of me, and she told me that she had to pick up her son from a soccer game. Now, I thought it would be reasonable to say no, and I explained I only had 2 items and that it wouldn't take that long for her to wait since, you know, there were 7 checkouts. But then she started calling me a heartless jerk and that I don't have the Christmas spirit and how I want her son to suffer in the cold and how people these days have no compassion. She also started talking about her labor and contractions when she gave birth, which by the way, I don't know how any of this relates to me in the slightest. Honestly, I was really uncomfortable. It wouldn't be hard for me to just let her go. Usually, if someone were to ask and they had less items than me, then of course. But I felt felt like it wouldn't make much of a difference in time. I only have 2 items and it's also -5 degrees outside and it's not even soccer season. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm still very confused about what happened. Okay, this lady is crazy entitled and honestly, there's no other way of looking at this. She literally tried to use every excuse in the book. First of all, it's -5 degrees outside and it's not even soccer season. So she was just literally trying to make you feel guilty by being like, oh, think of the children. And to me, you can really see how someone actually is when you tell them no to something that they want. Because this entitled Karen flew off the handle the second you told her no. She was like, oh, you're such a heartless jerk. You have no compassion or Christmas spirit. By the way, labor and contractions were hard for me when I gave birth. And at this point, she's basically reaching for anything. Literally something she can be like, oh yeah, this is your fault. You're a terrible person. And I just love the fact that she tried to scoot in front of you and be like, oh, excuse me, I'm getting in front of you. It's like, no, you're not. You're getting in the back of the line or going to any of the other 7 checkout lines you can get your stuff at. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. And honestly, I'm really glad that you said no, because people like this, in my opinion, absolutely need to be shut down. Am I the jerk for getting upset at my brother after he dumped out my last pair of contacts, rendering me practically blind for the rest of my vacation? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female and I am a glasses and contact wearer, and I only come home during winter break to see my family, but also I'm coming home to get a refill for my prescriptions and go to my doctor's and my dentist. I never stay for very long because due to situations in the past, I don't feel comfortable staying with my immediate family for long periods of time. Now, it being December, I was on my last pair of contact lenses, and my appointment to go to the optometrist is in 2 days. But once I order my contacts, they will not get to my university address until after my semester courses begin. That being said, I had just planned on wearing my contacts to the end of the month and then switch to my glasses when I head back to school. However, today, my 17-year-old brother literally dumped out my last pair of contacts, and I found the case and the contact solution all scattered on the bathroom counter. Obviously, that was my only way to see anything for the remainder of the year, so I confronted him, and he denied everything, even though he is the only other person who had been in that bathroom at that point in the day. And mind you, he has a history of lying to cops and other family members. Anyways, I started texting him because he needed to give me the money to replace my contacts, and he said he wasn't going to give me a dime, and then sent the conversation to my sister. She then started talking unnecessarily loud about how mean she thought I was, but conveniently failed to mention that my brother called me various insults, including calling me fat, because my mother, my father, and my sister said that about me literally the moment I got home from school. At that point, they all started yelling at me, saying that my brother is a huge help around the house, and they then told me to get over it, but I'm honestly still upset because I cannot see anything. It's also important to keep in mind that he has gotten into trouble with the school, as well as the cops, and he's also thrown my parents into debt because he caused a car accident. I don't even know how I'm gonna make it through the airport or even go back to school without being able to see. Not only that, but I have a conference and school starting up again soon, and if I can't see, then I won't be able to do well. But to them, I'm overreacting, and I'm being mean to him even though they won't address what he's done to me. And this is what it's always been like. I end up getting in trouble when people do wrong against me, hence why I don't come home very often. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, you're definitely not the jerk here because your family sounds obnoxious. If your brother wasn't the person to mess with your contacts, then somebody else in the family did it, because now you're literally blind. So it's like, okay, if your brother doesn't want to pay for it, then someone has to. Someone did this to your stuff, and it's not fair that you have to pay the price by not being able to see. So no, you're not the jerk for getting upset about this, because someone's guilty, and honestly, this is not your fault. I beg my parents to please just give me money for Christmas instead of gifts, all because I lost my job and I'm struggling to make rent. But instead of listening to me, they gave me gifts and basically mocked the fact that I was poor. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So for Christmas, my parents asked what I wanted, and I told them I just want money. Don't get me gifts, just money, please. For context, I got laid off from my corporate job almost a year ago. I'm still working, just haven't found a new corporate job. But minimum wage does not cover the cost of living in my area in San Diego. So I told both of my parents all I would like is money to go towards rent or food, and to please not give me anything else because I don't need anything else. For more context, my parents are pretty wealthy. They've never helped me out, and I just don't expect them to. They just bought a $4 million home, and my dad just sold his company for a lot of money. It's just hard to be around them because they're extremely out of touch. They constantly spend money and can't fathom that people are struggling right now. I've never had the best relationship with with them, considering that they only talk about themselves, and make sure to let me know that I don't make any money and that I will never make as much money as my dad. Well, for Christmas, I started getting handed gifts. I know you can say I sound ungrateful, but I knew as soon as I saw presents under the tree for myself, I would not be getting any money. My parents then proceeded to get me the most pointless, expensive things. They even left the price tags on so I could see how much money they spent. They got me 4 anthropology candles, which totals to about $175, a $50 cat hand towel, a pashmina, a Temu fake houseplant, 2 pairs of running socks, and a cooking spoon. And again, these are all things that I do not need. It was hard to not cry sitting there looking at the price tags and just wishing that I had that money instead of these pointless gifts. On top of that, my parents didn't ask me a single thing about myself this entire Christmas. Instead, I had to sit there and listen about the 2 new Airbnbs they bought and how my mom just did a gift exchange and got a ton of expensive products from her friends. You can say that I'm selfish, but honestly, it hurt. I've lost a lot of weight because I can't afford to eat. I left feeling worse about myself and hating them even more. And right now, I really don't know what to do. Man, if I was in your shoes, I would sell all those stupid gifts. They literally left the price tags on them. Like, if you really are that hard up for money and you need to make rent, then I would personally start selling those off. Because the way your parents acted, in my opinion, is so out of touch. And I'm so sorry you're dealing with this, and I really hope it gets better sooner than later. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.